Welcome back. Ice and windstorms can lead to power outages rather, but there's a different kind of storm brewing, and this one is flying over the radar. First Alert meteorologist Ross Ellett shows us how eruptions from the sun will impact technology here on Earth and asks the electrical companies what they're doing to prepare.
There is a season for everything. Tornadoes, they're common in late spring. Hurricane activity, that peaks in September. And as it turns out, space weather has its own storm season.
They can really cause havoc on electrical grids, communication systems.
University of Toledo astronomy professor Mike Cushing says our star carries fierce force, and we're nearing its peak intensity. Solar storm season is starting now and will continue for the next 3 years as sunspots lead to solar flares. As the charged plasma clouds blast towards us up to 6 million miles per hour, it could overwhelm Earth's magnetic field.
You sort of flood the system. There's so many particles coming in that the magnetic fields can't handle it.
That leads to geomagnetic storms, and they're ranked on a scale of G1 to G5. Tornadoes have the rare EF5. Hurricanes, the catastrophic Cat 5.
Same thing in space weather. G5 is the big one.
Bill Murtaugh has spent his career watching the sun and works for the Space Weather Prediction Center, a branch of NOAA.
We have a 24/7 responsibility to monitor the sun for these big eruptions that do occur because they can have profound effects on technology.
And there has been a massive boom in technology since the latest G5 storm in 2003. Think about what life was like 20 years ago. Instead of the smartphone, we had the flip phone. Instead of GPS, we were logging into MapQuest. A G5 storm could severely impact radio signals and GPS. But the biggest threat? That's keeping the lights on.
This current has to flow somewhere and it goes right into the power grid. The power grid now have a unwanted DC current into an AC network. It's just a bad thing.
In the 70s, there was a coronal mass ejection that actually shut down one of the grids in the Northeast.
It was worse in 1989 as the lights went out for 6 million people. But the biggest G5 storm, that happened before the power grid was even built. That record was in 1859, right before the Civil War.
The folks in Cuba and Central America looked up and saw the northern lights.
The northern lights reach all of the U.S., including Hawaii, and was so bright you could read a book by its light. Communication back in that era was by telegraph, and enough current built up along the wires to spark fires and bring silence across the country. The concern is having a storm like that today.
Impact could be profound, especially on the electric power grid.
On average, each 11-year solar cycle produces about one extreme G5 storm near solar peak. The last cycle didn't produce any. There were 2 the previous cycle. So how do electric companies prepare and adjust for these storms to prevent blackouts? That's the question we asked Toledo Edison and AEP. Both companies referred us to PGM, a regional transmission organization that manages the electric grid for all of Ohio and 12 other states. PGM did not grant our interview requests or answer our questions directly. However, they did refer us to a flyer that is posted on their website about geomagnetic storms that reads in part, if sustained ground currents at a certain level are observed, PGM operates the system in a more conservative mode until the space weather event has ended. I'm meteorologist Ross Ellett, 13 Action News.